Good evening and welcome to Wrestling Rewind. I'm your host, Angelo Mosca, and I am joined by my co-host,
Iron Man Tommy Cairo. What's happening, Angel?
Iron Man Tommy Cairo. What's going on?
Yeah, nothing much. Sitting around, getting my act together, trying out a new system, and I just realized I had a box. I keep my vitamins and supplements in it, and it seals. So it's a big box with two, handles on the end. They seal, and I was going to put it on my lap, and then I could put the book right there. But I'm not going to bother. We'll figure this out. I'll go get a music stand from the high school.
There you go. That would help. So we're trying to figure out the best way that Tommy can display his books during our book readings. But this week, we are going to delve into wrestling archives with an edition of Arena Reports. And in this Arena Reports, we will be comparing shows from the Philadelphia Spectrum, 1984. Is this a WWF show, right?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Okay, versus...
On the other end, we have NWA Starrcade 83, A Flair for the Gold. Both shows took place on the 26th of November, 1983. This show, however, is designated as Greensboro, North Carolina, at the Greensboro Coliseum.
All right, so let's get started.
So here we go. Your hosts are Gordon Soley and Bob Caudle. The Assassins, with Paul Jones, versus Bugsy McGraw and Rufus R. Jones. The Freight Train, Rufus R. Jones. The Assassins were known was Assassin number 1. That's not right. And Assassin number 2. Assassin number 1 was the manager of Paul Orndorff and Paul Roma in the early to mid 90s and opened up the WCW Power Plant. You can thank the Assassin for training guys like Kevin Nash, DDP, Triple H, and Goldberg. It doesn't really matter who the other Assassin guy is. So let's move on to Bugsy and Rufus. This is really, they made a lot of typos. Hold on, I'm sorry.
Now, which assassin they're talking about, since they're not really mentioning the name of which assassin they're talking about. Are they talking about Dave Sierra, or are they talking about Dave Sheldon? There was a lot of assassins. So,
and it was back then, Jody Hamilton was probably still
right.
Out
not
there.
Really too clear on that.
Yeah. Well, those were throughout the years. They always had those, and it worked to their advantage. But I always hated it. There's some random Mr. X dude in a singlet that doesn't fit him with baggy wrestling pants. I'm like, this is terrible.
Right.
How'd you put the poor guy out there like that? It's horrible. Okay, we're moving on to Bugsy and Rufus. Bugsy wrestled all over the U.S. and Canada during the 1970s and early 80s, but then went away to become a nurse. Wow, I didn't know that. Once the territory area died out. As for Rufus R. Jones, he competed as well in everywhere but the WWF. During the 70s and 80s, to Rufus' credit, it should be noted that he had 2 60-minute draws with Dory and Terry Funk during both their title reigns.
How about that?
So, I mean,
impressive.
Bugsy McGraw,
You wouldn't think it, right?
Oh, Rufus, I'm saying. I meant Rufus. That's what I meant.
Rufus.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think, but hey.
Yeah. He was a big, raw bone guy, too. We ran into him, he would get hurt automatically,
Sure, like a brick wall.
Yeah. So he wrestled both of them during their title reigns. You'd never know it. By 1983, as Rufus took to flabby and it's so small, the writing. I guess it's the light. He looked very flabby, Rufus, and out of shape to even go 10 minutes with these guys.
Wow.
Nevertheless, Rufus is the current NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Champion, which had been previously held by Dory Funk Jr. The Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight title was a title that had been held by practically everybody who was good in the 70s and 80s NWA. Seriously, you name an awesome 70s NWA wrestler, and he probably held it. Rufus and Bugsy remind me of an the hill in out of shape Road Dog and K Quick combination. Bugsy starts out with number 2 as they lock up, and number 2 goes to the headlock and then gets shoved off into the ropes. It connects with a shoulder block. Bugsy gets a hip toss, but then misses an elbow drop. Number 2, assassin number 2, won as well and gets slammed and bails. Back in, they lock up again. Bugsy gets shoved off into the ropes. He ducks a clothesline, comes back around with an elbow to the head. Bugsy wins a slugfest that leads to assassin number 1 getting tagged into the ring. They go through a similar sequence as before with Bugsy getting a slam off a headlock. Rufus tags in and struts around in between blows on number one. Rufus holds on out. Rufus holds on out of a hip toss and works on the arm. Number 1 tries to punch out, but Rufus is black, so his head is way too hard.
Oh, that's not us saying that. This is Serena Reports.
Wow, how far we have come.
This is Wrestling Rewind. We're taking you back in history. So that's
not responsible.
Words in history, not our words right now. Please, moving on, Tommy.
That's great. Black, so his head is way too hard. If Michael Cole were calling this, he would say something like, it's like punching a brick wall. Bugsy tags in and keeps the pressure on the arm. Number 1 backs Bugsy into the corner and tags number 2. Number 2 tries to work the arm, but Bugsy elbows out and tags in Rufus' arm. Goes back to the arm, and number 2 tries to punch out again. But of course, he's going to start doing that boogie woogie, that's customary of the blacks.
Oh, shoot. All right. That's enough with that.
Oh, my God.
They're saying it. Not us. They're saying it.
Yeah. I mean, this is out there. This is public knowledge. Anybody can get it. So Rufus breaks the armbar and backs number 2 into the corner for a beat down. So it gets a double team. Number 2 comes back with a rake to the eyes and tags in number 2. Rufus headbutts number 1 to get away and makes the hot tag to Bugsy. Bugsy was another one. He was like, he'd be hitting his head and stuff.
Oh, you're a crazy person. Right.
Yeah. Okay. So assassin number 1. All 4 come into the ring for a short time before number 1 makes a blind tag to number 2 and rolls up Bugsy for the win. At 8:08, the crowd seemed really into Rufus and Bugsy to make for a hot opener, but the finish seemed to upset them a little bit. So, when you're in these little places too, especially these studios, like, there's a vibe. These people you're going to know how they feel because there's only a handful.
Yeah, they're very serious about what they're watching because it's in such close quarters that really paying attention to everything. So you don't want to look like a jerk off. So what do you say to your opponent? Like we say in Snug Life, lay it the fuck in, bro. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. Just, lay it in. I remember that's how it was like this. Lay it in, brother. Don't worry about it. Yeah. We're not here to for the ballerina or ballet or is some kind of like soft touching moments. We know what we're there for. So yeah.
I get ramped up just thinking about it. Like I'm thinking about all of us out there and me leading Domino. This guy just sent me. He goes, I remember you brought Domino up. You cracked him in the head with an unopened can of soda and instant crimson mask. Like, this is a guy, like, he's a fan. He goes, I feel so glad that I actually happened to see that. He goes, that was, I said, yeah. I dragged Domino. We're off, but I'll go back over to the window. And I said, that's my mother up there in the stands. I'm going to drag your ass up there. No, cause I brought him up there and I beat him right in front of my mother. She came out. They said, mother's outside after. Go see her. So I go out there. She's got tears in her eyes and she's laughing. And she's like, I didn't I didn't raise you to be like this.
Oh, I'll tell you, I was really happy that we got to work together after ECW to have times like that where I managed the Misfits and we carried on a feud for years on the independent circuit. It was like
I don't think we said more than 20 words to each other ever about what are we doing. I just,
Right. We just went out there and had a good time, and it was great. But back to the reports, because we could talk about this forever.
Yeah. So, Harley just was insistent upon, you got to put me through a table, bro.
Of course.
That's all he wanted. And that just put me over. And every time I even said to Domino, come on, I'll put you over. He's like, no, gosh, you got to go over. I'm like, it was just, there was nothing to think about, really. Let's just go beat each other up for 20 minutes. And when we can go back to the locker room and everybody's like, I ain't working with those fucking guys.
Exactly. So back to the reports. We can tell stories about this all night.
Yeah. All right. So here we go. So that was, the people were not too happy about that, but they're building heat, Tony is standing by in the face locker room where Flair, Piper, Youngblood, and Steamboat are just hanging out. Johnny Weaver and Scott Mcgee, another good little worker, a little Irish guy.
Scotty Mcgee.
Versus Kevin Sullivan and Mark Lewin. The Purple Haze, the real Purple Haze.
All right.
So this is, they're all, Mid-Atlantic region was really hot at that point. I mean, that was like a really, really intense work ethic there. Weaver, who's at that point pretty old, I guess, is a staple of the Mid-Atlantic region during the 70s. Scott Mcgee is a second-generation wrestler trained by Ricky Steamboat, Ric Flair, and Buddy Rogers.
Oh.
He was trained by Ric Flair, Buddy Rogers, and Ricky Steamboat.
Well-rounded fellow.
I'm sure he got his ass kicked a lot, too.
Yeah, sure thing.
Ricky Steamboat. Okay, he was successful in the territories in the 80s, but then suffered a career-ending stroke in January 1988. Kevin Sullivan was billed. Oh, this is bad.
That's pretty awful. Stroke. A young guy like that. You have to imagine, what was going on that would cause a stroke.
You don't know because nobody got tested like we do today. You know what I mean?
Right.
By the time you felt
or whatever.
By the time you felt bad enough to go to the doctor, you could be half dead.
Yeah, and a lot of us are stubborn that don't want to admit that anything's wrong, even though the steroids are flowing with all the other drugs they combine. So who knows?
Yeah, but you know what?
Short career. And a stroke. Did you find out where you are there?
Yes, I've been. It's not even that. It's that the print is so small. Career-ending stroke in January 19th. Kevin Sullivan was billed as the Prince of Darkness down in Florida, and Mark Lewin was one of the henchmen. His Army of Darkness was like an earlier, much creepier version of the Dungeon of Doom. Mcgee and Sullivan start things off as Mcgee gets in a pair of drop kicks and Sullivan tags in Lewin. He misses a couple chops on Mcgee and tags Sullivan back into the ring. Weaver tags in and he and Sullivan run the ropes for a bit. But Sullivan holds on to the ropes as he sees Weaver fist cocked back and tags in Lewin. Weaver works the arm of Lewin and tags in Mcgee. After Lewin reverses the arm rear, Mcgee uses Lewin's body to escape the hold. That was cool. Lewin puts on a headlock and brings Mcgee over to his corner to tag in Sullivan. The heels trade tags in and out, working on Mcgee's arm. They do the false tag spot, which leads to a double team on Mcgee. Sullivan makes a mistake, which leads to a hot tag to Weaver. Running bulldog by Weaver gets two. Weaver tries another running bulldog, but Sullivan blocks by shoving him into the corner. With a little help from Gary Hart, Sullivan and Lewin deliver a knee from the top to Weaver's arm for the 3 count. To his arm? For the 3 count? Must have hurt. 7 minutes and 43 seconds. Now, remember, I just mentioned we're talking about the Farheads, Johnny Weaver in the sheriff's outfit with the cut head. Like it just didn't look right, you know? It's like, dude, what's wrong with your head? Mcgee tries to save Weaver from a double team beatdown. Hart comes in, Gary Hart, I guess, and pulls a spike out of his sock and gives it to Lewin, who stabs Mcgee several times in the face with it. This is a spike. With it. Angelo Mosca tries to come in to save, but he gets stabbed in the arm by Lewin. Once they go back to punishing Mcgee, Mosca comes over to chase the heels out of the ring. Nice little match with a crazy conclusion. So that's pretty crazy.
Sounds pretty nuts.
Yeah. You know, that spike that Kevin used for a long time was like, I was made of metal. I mean,
yeah.
You know, so it's all about how you use it. Ian Rotten's got me in the Elks Lodge in Queens, and he says, I got this scissor. I'm like, he goes, I'm going to have it in my shorts, and when time comes, I'll have you over by the window. I'll be trying to force you out the window. I'm like, good. Hanging out of the window. I said, listen, it was Axel, not Ian.
Right.
I said, can I see the scissors? And it was your typical Fiskars orange handle. And on the blade of a Fiskars, along the edge this way, going down, are these little serrations. Like, right? I go, dude, you gotta look at the scissor and make sure you don't lay the wrong side down on my head. So make sure you can do that in the excitement of trying to throw me out onto the freaking, you know, Elks or whatever that is there. So exactly that's what happened. He was so excited that you never know how much you're pushing. And I had to like push him away from my head to not get stabbed and cut. And wasn't trying to hurt me, just, you know.
Yeah, he was himself, being himself. Yep. Another hot day here where we are. Almost 100 degrees. So
is it? I don't know. I think it's about 90 here.
Hot.
Yep. All right. So Mcgee uses Lewin's body to escape the hole. We got that. Weaver tries another running bulldog. We did that. Mcgee tries to save Weaver from a double team. Mosca tries to come in and save. He gets stabbed. Everybody's getting stabbed.
So I assume this was before the time that Kevin Sullivan was bringing the Snake Master, Jeff Gardner, and Fallen Angel, Nancy Bell with him, and the whole with the snakes.
No, you know what? Maybe not.
This stuff. But for this show, he didn't have them with him. When he worked for the Championship Wrestling, that's where they did that gimmick.
I think it was before this.
Okay.
Because it was the mid to late 70s in Florida. This is 84 already.
Right, we're talking about 84, so this was just already happening simultaneously.
Yep.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Great group.
Yeah. So, you know, Greg Valentine was another of a major, you know, draw in the Mid-Atlantic. Him, Piper, Paul Jones, we were talking about the other night. So he did an interview. So the end of this match, which was a crazy conclusion, was they gave it 2.5 stars. They don't rate them all. But it says an interview chick named Barbara Clary, I know that name, is out in the audience with the Estes family who traveled 180 miles to see Starrcade. She asks the father, was it worth it? Ha ha. They all think Ric Flair is going to win the title tonight. Okay? So, sounds like he's invested.
Yeah, okay.
All right, now Tony is in the locker room. I guess it's Shivani, right?
In 84? In 84?
Who? They just introduced people out of nowhere. Now Tony is in the heel locker room with Greg Valentine, the Briscoes, and Harley Race. In other words, he's standing by with the champions. Race says he's been talking with his buddies who know where Flair hurts. Carlos Colon versus Abdullah the Butcher. Okay.
Oh, there you go.
both guys bleed like pints of blood, but they're dark as can be, and you can only see if they're bleeding on you.
Right. Now you're reading this. These are not our words. You're reading these. This is not our words.
Right. I'm reading this. This is here. Yep. Taken right off the internet. So I guess Colon was part of the NWA. So he would come over once in a while. Flair would go over there once in a while. They even went to I forget what country it was, but there was a guy called Jack Veneno, and he got a 60-minute draw because it was in NWA territory. I know it was out some Hispanic,
New Zealand or whatever. Yeah. NWA goes a long way, as we covered in our past shows. You know, a lot of different territories,
a lot of area.
Yes.
All right, Carlos Colon versus Abdullah the Butcher. In case you did not know, Carlos is Carlito's father. Colon is revered in Puerto Rico. He's pretty much the Vince McMahon of Puerto Rico, you would say.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Absolutely.
Carlito's his father. Colon he's revered in Puerto Rico just as much as baseball legend Roberto Clemente. Abdullah the Butcher is one of the originators of the hardcore wrestling style. Apparently, this match was barred in Puerto Rico, so they booked it here instead. Even at nearly 70 years old and close to 50 years in the business, Abdullah still wrestles on occasion in small American indie feds. Abdullah controls early with his usual Colon fights out of the corner and comes at Abdullah with right hands. Colon pulls the spike out of Abdullah's shorts and uses it again against him. Abdullah is open, which doesn't look to be a very hard task to accomplish, considering the amount of scars on his head. Why the referee doesn't disqualify Colon is beyond me. Colon puts Abdullah down with a knee lift and then hits a standing leg drop for 2. The ref takes an accidental elbow drop from Abdullah. Colon delivers a drop kick and starts working on the knee and hooks on the figure 4. Hugo Savinovich comes in and breaks up the hold. Abdullah covers. Savinovich, yep. Comes in and breaks up the hold. Abdullah covers as the ref is revived, enough to count the pin on Colon. Yes, the WWE Spanish commentator was once a Puerto Rican wrestler and has since then put on a lot of weight. I guess they're talking. It says time 4:29. Crap in capital letters.
Okay, well,
you know, you got to really like Abdullah, because if you don't like his gig, you have a feeling that he's been stealing money all these years.
Well,
you know? So that's
and a lot of other things, but that's that's his story. This hell.
I'm sure he's paying a price for his misdeeds. They all do.
Certainly.
One way or another, they wither away. They die lonely, broken. You know.
You know, for my, I had a show in 1996 at TCW. It was called Rule Breakers Rule 96. It was a very big show, Confederacy of Scum Super Show. You can look that up on the internet. And we actually tried to book Abdullah the Butcher against me in the main event.
Oh, my God.
He wouldn't do it. He wouldn't
do it.
Yeah, and it would have been what I ended up with was Kevin Kennedy, Madman.
That you knew him previous, right?
Oh yeah, I know him, and he refused to do it.
Oh, that's nice.
It would have been a great show.
He didn't want to fall on you by accident.
Fall on me. He probably didn't want to like slice me open like he did with a lot of the other local kids here back in the 80s. But you know, just a little tidbit there, and also little tidbits is that in Roberto Clemente Stadium. Where Puerto Rico ran a lot was where you mentioned Harley Lewis earlier, and that's where Harley Lewis won the WWC title back in 1998. Yes.
Wow.
Champion there on TV every week.
Wow. I didn't know he worked until that late.
Yes,
wow.
Absolutely.
I remember seeing him. He looked completely different. He was on the two brothers. The one's the gay fucking jerk off, Donnie, and Nova. Those fucking guys. I don't like those guys. You know, he locked my belt in a locker, and I didn't get it. And two years later, the school called me up. The detective called me. He said, "We got your belt. It was locked in a locker. Come and get it."
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
that's beyond a prank. That's just ridiculous. But
well, they knew they had to do.
Moving on, because we don't want to.
Oh yeah, wow.
Okay. But
it's hard.
Right.
So you can imagine this is just a complete mess. Why doesn't the referee stop? So the guy that's rating it called it crap. So I guess he wasn't a fan of that type of wrestling. But it does say Shivani here.
Oh,
he's sitting in the locker room. So yeah, 84, he was already there.
All right. Tony Schiavone.
He's sitting in the locker room with Angelo Mosca and Scott Mcgee, who looks unconscious as he's just sitting there bleeding. Angelo is pissed at Sullivan and Lewin, but he's still going to ref the tag titles match. He puts over Race and Flair, but he ends up by saying that Flair will prevail. In the crowd, Barbara is standing by two ladies from Raleigh, South Carolina. Don't you mean Raleigh, North Carolina? How can you possibly screw that up? She asks them. What is worth the drive? Was it worth the drive? And who they think is going to win the world title match? Of course, they all said Ric Flair. So they give you this. This is another guy. He died young, Jay Youngblood. Is the other guy brother still alive? Mark Youngblood, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Those guys were freaking good, man.
Yeah.
They were a good tag team. They really were. So it'll be Wahoo and Mark Youngblood versus Dick Slater and Bob Orton Jr.
Oh, nice.
That could be physical.
Yeah, that's got potential. I can't wait to hear this one.
Yeah. Let's see if we're right. This is Flair. This is the Flair's buddies versus Race's henchmen match. Because everybody knows bad guys don't have friends. Ring announcer Tom Miller announces that Dusty Rhodes is in the audience. Why they chose to announce that during the match, I'm not sure. Wahoo chases Slater around the ring to start before they lock up. Slater flips out of the corner off a whip to slow the pace down. Wahoo reverses a hammerlock into an arm wringer and tags in Mark, who stays on the arm. Slater fights out, but then goes down to a slam. Slater gets a double leg roll up for two. No, they trade hammerlocks for a bit, but that ends abruptly as Slater gets kicked out onto the apron. Orton and Slater try to convince referee Tommy Young that Slater was thrown over the top rope, because they got that DQ, to allow a DQ. But Young doesn't give a crap. Slater changes from a test of strength into a side Russian leg sweep for two. Orton tags in and comes off the ropes with a knee to the back of Mark Youngblood. Orton gets a backbreaker, but then misses an elbow. Youngblood comes back with a hip toss, but then makes a blind tag to Slater for the heels to take over. So, in and out, back and forth, up and down, at least it's not boring.
Yeah, lots of action.
Yep. Slater hammers Youngblood down to the mat and then brings him back up to give him a gut wrench suplex for two. Slater dumps Mark for Orton to kick. I can't freaking say. I got to get this over here.
Hey, you know what? We have Steve Savage on.
Oh, here he is.
Call. So I'm going to really quick let him in
to
our arena reports here. Steve Savage.
Yo!
Good to see you. We are in the middle of an arena report. Let's see, WWF 1984 versus Tommy.
WCW.
Versus WCW.
Same day,
I
same
was
year.
one. I don't know how much I can weigh in, but if I'm read the card, I might be able to throw an educated guess together.
All right, so where were we? It comes back to the hip toss. Blind tag to Slater for the heels to take back over. Slater hammers Youngblood down to the mat and then brings him back up to give him a gut wrench suplex for 2. Slater dumps Mark for Orton to kick him around on the floor. Not only that, but Orton gives Youngblood a backbreaker on the guardrail. Wahoo comes by to help Youngblood get back in the ring before he gets counted out and loses the match. Slater is right there to keep Youngblood grounded and in their corner. Orton applies a chin lock, like father, like son. Youngblood elbows out, but then runs into a boot from Orton. Slater tags in while Orton controls Youngblood by keeping him from making the hot tag. Slater hits a vertical suplex, but doesn't hook the leg and gets only 2. Slater tries for a pile driver, but Youngblood backdrops out of it. Just as it looks to be Youngblood's moment to come back, he runs into Slater for a double KO. Youngblood finally makes the hot tag to Wahoo. Wahoo has plenty of chops for both heels. Double noggin knocker. Wahoo hits an inverted atomic drop and follows up with a tomahawk chop. A slam and an elbow drop gets 2. Wahoo covers again, but Orton has his foot on the bottom rope. Orton tags into Slater and immediately tackles Wahoo to the mat to keep him isolated. After a Slater stomping, Wahoo comes up trading blows. Wahoo grabs a headlock, but then Slater counters with a back suplex for a bunch of near falls. Tag to Orton for a double reverse back elbow. Orton tags Slater and then holds on to Wahoo so that Slater can come off top rope with a single sledge. But Wahoo moves out of the way. Wahoo atomic drops Slater into his corner for Youngblood to kill him with chops. Youngblood tags in for a double team chop. Orton shoots over to Wahoo and knocks him off the apron and then runs back to his corner for the blind tag. Youngblood gets nailed but then fights back on both Orton and Slater with drop kicks. Orton stays in the ring as Slater falls out to battle with Wahoo. Youngblood whiffs on a drop kick. I guess that means he missed to get a suplex from Orton for the win. Wahoo made the failed save too early, and it looked like he made the save, but the ref didn't see it. After the match, Orton and Slater try to break Wahoo's arm by draping his arm across the apron and then driving their knee into it as they come off the top rope. Why not? On the way out, you might as well break his arm. You know? That's great. In the back, Flair. Yeah, so it was an old school match, and they gave it like 3.5 stars. In the back, Flair responds to Race by saying he wants Race at his best. Oh, yeah, and also to wish Jay Youngblood and Ricky Steamboat good luck in their tag match. We were talking about these Youngbloods, Mark and Jay Youngblood. They were like Native American guys. They smooth as silk, really athletic. I think one's alive and one's dead, but another victim of, the same consequences as so many other people. But if you ever get a chance to see tag matches with those guys, like if you were to see those guys against the Rock and Roll Express, it would be like insane.
Amazing. So we're in the middle of reading the arena reports here, Steve. There's nothing really to chime in with too much as just listening. We're comparing the two and seeing who we like better for the time and what they were doing and whatnot. So, and after we get done that, we'd like to hear a little bit about what you guys got planned for some upcoming events that you have going, and we'll get into that. So, Tommy, do you want to finish this up here?
Yeah, let me see. Here's what I think we'll do this because this is a big card.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So let me. How long is this? All right, we'll do this. This is good. NWA, and then we'll be done for now. NWA Television Champion, the Great Kabuki, one of my favorites.
Oh,
with Gary Hart. Yeah, with Gary Hart versus Charlie Brown. No DQ title versus mask. So Charlie Brown's the champion of some sort, I guess. We'll figure that out. Kabuki is the inspiration for the Great Muta gimmick. He is known as the first wrestler to use poison mist. Although unrelated to each other, Muta was billed as Kabuki's son when he began working for Jim Crockett Promotions. Charlie Brown is Jimmy Valiant in a black mask. Oh, I didn't know that.
Okay, that's
pretty cool. It's the kind of thing where these guys' bodies. They put on a mask, you still know who it is.
Especially Jimmy Valiant with the super long ass, and he always had weights pulled up to the bottom of his ankles.
And
it was him.
His boots came up like 3 feet.
Right.
All right, Brown even starts choking. I got to get this where I can see this between the small print and the light. They immediately brawl out to the floor with Charlie Brown in control. Brown even starts choking him with a chair. Brown posts one good time. I guess he ran him into the pole. And starts choking him with a chair. Brown posts one good time before going back into the ring. Gary Brown. How is it Gary Brown? They put Gary Brown in there. It's like, there's nobody's spell checking anything on this thing.
Was that Meltzer back in the day?
I'm like, what did they do? Introduce the brother now? So Kabuki.
Where these come from, Steve? I wonder myself. But this is '84, so I don't think.
Yeah. Kabuki finally fights out by clawing Brown in the eyes. However, Kabuki misses a chop and gets caught in the sleeper again. Hart helps him out by putting his foot on the bottom rope to break the hold. Kabuki connects with some chops and kicks before applying another rest hold known as the claw hold. Valiant fights. He did the nerve hold on the neck. Valiant fights up with a backdrop, but then goes down to a roundhouse kick to the gut. Kabuki returns to the claw hold. Valiant tries to come back, but the effect of the claw hold makes him dizzy enough to charge and run into a foot in the corner. More claw hold. We cut to Kabuki trying to get a pin out of the claw hold. Wow, this is some exciting stuff. Kabuki releases and hits a chop from the top for 2. Now Kabuki tries to take off the mask, but can't get it off, so he gives him a roundhouse kick. Charlie Brown comes back and hits a wobbly running elbow. Kabuki was pretty sure-footed, and I'm sure he did actually have martial arts background. And it's all gimmick, and that's not a claw hold. It's a nerve hold. Claw hold is this, or anywhere else on the body. We just get the nerve up in the neck here.
Just pinching your jugular a bit.
Yeah.
What it was. Right.
Yep.
Well, the old Vulcan neck pinch, but for a shoot.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I remember that from somewhere. Where's that from? The Vulcan?
Star Trek.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why I don't know too much. I watched it for a little bit.
I let my nerve fall out. Sorry.
No,
What's
please.
that?
We need the help.
I'm sorry.
He said he let his nerve fall out for a minute.
Oh, that's terrible. I'm glad the camera's up high. Please keep it up there. All right, so the effect of the nerve hold makes him dizzy enough to charge and run into a foot in the corner. More claw hold, nerve hold. We cut to Kabuki trying to get a pin out of the claw. Wow, this is some exciting. I said this. Wobbly, running elbow. I did that. I'm sorry. This is Flair's buddies. We did that. We done? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a no DQ this match. So this is going to be. Oh, so he got the 3 count. So they lift this piece off. Kabuki got the 3 count after he blew the mist and got him for the 3 count at 10:28 of 13:35. It started off okay with them brawling all over and Charlie Brown doing heel moves, but then it began to suck terribly from there. A half a star. Standing by with Bob Caudle and Gordon Soley is some radio DJ from Raleigh who says Flair should take the gold. I think Caudle just said, "All right, dude."
Whoever that wrote this it was kind of negative throughout, and they really didn't give any good ratings to any of these matches. So to try to go based off of their judgment, I would recommend.
No, and I think I've found this before, not just probably a different guy, but the same manner. Like they got this little gig to, spell the match out on paper, and they, stick their own little 2 cents in there. But that's okay, because somebody's got to feel some way about somebody, right?
Right.
That's what makes it work. You like some, you don't like others.
For this one, quickly, which one are you going with, WWF or? I'm
going to tell you what I think. I think WCW was all over the place. Everything was a title match, and if you didn't follow along on everything throughout the months, you wouldn't even know why this guy's wrestling this guy for what title. Yeah, I don't know. It was like just a little bit too much going on. I think had an overabundance of talent, and I don't see that it makes sense to have every championship defended, have 9 bouts, and everyone's a title match. It's like gets to be a little bit much. Reggie Park.
NWA, Jim Crockett, at the time would, that's how they would make their shows elaborate. Yeah. So actually, in comparison to the WWF card, I'm going to go with. I always lean towards the NWA Jim Crockett product. So I'm gonna go with them.
Yeah, and you know me, it'd be very hard for me to pick the WWF, WWE, whatever. Never, just never connected. I was already beyond. There was too cartoonish from the I would say late 70s, early 80s. It started changing, and once I had other options, Southwest Championship Wrestling came on. We were getting wrestling from the Olympic Auditorium.
Continental and Florida Championship Wrestling.
Yeah.
All that we had such a large variety of different
Memphis.
Things. Right? USWA was fantastic.
Global. After school.
And world class and whatnot. Yep. The repeats were ISPW, whatever. I'm sorry, ICCW.
Yeah. ICWWA, WCW.
All that, right? So a wide variety and a great era to take matches from. So now that we've both decided that Jim Crockett's NWA is a winner here, let's talk to Steve Savage a bit about, what's going on, what's coming up, and the plans that you and Tommy have for the new upcoming show, Heart of Wrestling. Take it away.
Well, Tommy and I recently recorded our intro episode, just kind of give it a brief history of how we met, which we've done on this show before. We just did it as kind of a way to work the bugs out. We're still trying to work the bugs out as far as what formats we're trying to take for different styles of doing the show. We're ready to go to that next step in a little bit. We just want to get a few more things said and done first. But next week, we're premiering our merchandise line, Snug Life, at the Icons Convention in Philly on the 6th.
Okay, great.
Hour.
And
I said hour.
Tommy, you want to explain a little bit about the concept? And I see you already have ready. So you want to
the Continental Nobleman. I'll let other people say who he is. We're not saying. That's the Continental Nobleman. And was indicative of the time. They took everything with them when they left because they were going for maybe a year plus. Left a lot of cheap furniture behind. It wasn't worth it to pack it. Just take your 5 bags, everything that you own that, you can leave the rest of that crap behind and you start over when you get to the next place. So that's dear to my heart, that rendering. So that'll be the number one or one of the first, we got 4 coming out on Saturday, 4, right?
We got 4 designs coming out right now. One is the debut of the Snug Life logo. It harkens back to the old 90s when Taz and Bugs Bunny were dressed up like Tupac with Thug Life.
Yes.
Kind of harkens back to that.
I think this would be an interesting inquiry. Of the 4 that we're putting out, what would you say would be your favorite?
I'm a little biased because I did the design for the Snug Life one. Just as my own little personal self-mark moment, probably the Snug Life shirt is the best of the four. But I think a lot of people are going to enjoy maybe Remember When, because it's that old time, back when you used to circle who won the matches on the little program that was taped to the back of every chair.
Or change whoever was subject to change. Yeah. You cross it out and put whoever the replacement was.
Yep.
Do you have any of those pictures on your phone that you could just hold up to the screen and give us an idea of what Snug Life and Remember When looks like?
No, because I'm using my phone.
Oh, that's right. You're using your phone. Okay.
These are things that have been in my head forever. So to put them, have them to start to develop into something is the most exciting thing, because they're very near and dear. When when Snug Life hit me with the bandana, and I said, "Tell Steve, what do we think?" and quickly put something together. That was truly for me. I said, "This is going to be the thing that we're going to key on." Hopefully, I don't care what it is that makes this work, as long as it's something. But I would like it to be that, because I believe in that, and I think we're starting something that nobody ever thought of.
The brand,
it's a cool thing.
The brand itself works because we harken back to the time when guys were a little more snug in the ring. They took care of each other. But there it is. That is the Snug Life logo. Guys used to work a little more snug back then. It wasn't stiff; it was snug. There's a difference.
Yep. I love that.
Hard way.
I misnamed him. I got him confused with Boyette, who was the hippie, Mike Boyette.
Mike Boyette, right?
Yeah. But this is Mario Galento. That's who that is. Mario Galento. There he is. I love that. I absolutely love that. He captures it so perfectly. He used to do this. He used to go like this, and then he did this thing. It meant something in Sicilian, like this. He put his finger on his tooth, and he go,
"Yeah,
Snug Life." Yeah. Right? And I was such a goof that I connected with all the guys that people were like, "You like him?" I'm like, "Yeah, that guy's awesome." Yep, there it is.
There's Remember When. There's the one.
I love it. And it'll invoke questions to those who don't get it. And we'll see them, because they may be in a locker room and they may say, "Oh, yeah, that's nice. Do you know the significance?" "No, what do you mean?" So it's an opportunity to teach somebody something they might not understand. It's a little quirky thing, and I think it makes it that much more, exciting.
Well, it stands out because it's not just a Heart of Wrestling radio shirt or a Snug Life shirt. It's
right.
Encompassing back to that snug generation where it's like, yeah, you know what? We like it snug. Lay it in.
Lay it the fuck in, bro. I was telling Angel earlier, what I remember is always like this. Lay it the fuck in, bro. We were always like, is that how I said it? I'm trying to think.
Yeah, that's exactly
don't worry about it, bro. Lay it in. Don't worry about it. Yeah, that's why we can't walk, but that's okay. It separated us from everybody else. When people talk about what I did, that's what they remember. I was a furniture mover. I mean, I loved it. Cousin Luke would say, "You know what I want from you guys? Move some furniture." When he gave you the okay to do whatever you wanted, you didn't always necessarily have to go over the top. But as long as you knew you could, everything was that much better.
Some Mark said to me somewhere, "Oh, why do half you guys walk funny?" I said, "Because we're wrestlers. We're used to the promoter fucking us."
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I never had that problem, because I came in with the guys that were, that were big names already in the business. The Dave Johannans and the Johnny Rods and all Pete Sanchez and all those guys.
Different way to come in the business then versus.
And it was a different way. You brought you in. They gave me $100 for my first match, 1986. That's the way it was. The cheapest person, believe it or not, was Savoldi's, and they paid $60.
Somebody's phone is ringing.
I'm using my phone.
Tommy, that's you.
It's always me.
That's okay. So anyway, you guys got an event coming up at the 2300 Arena. You are appearing for the Sign and Smile and to promote the Heart of Wrestling Radio. Am I getting that right? The Heart of Wrestling Radio?
Yep.
Hey, Angel, what happened to your volume? I can't hear you. Like before.
It must be on you. But
I got
anyway,
it all the way up.
It's fine.
Right.
So anyhow, glad that you've joined us, Steve, for our arena reports and to send out there just a little bit of information about the Heart of Wrestling Radio that you and Tommy Cairo are going to start very soon. Do you have a YouTube? You guys have a YouTube?
We do have a YouTube, and we have a Facebook page, and we have a Twitch page, I believe. Right now, the only content is our first little test video that we did. It's up on the Heart of Wrestling YouTube page.
All right. So if you guys want, go check that out. The Heart of Wrestling Radio on YouTube, also Facebook and Twitch. I believe you're also on TikTok, Steve, but which
I'm social media stupid. I can't figure half this stuff out
either. But
our first official presentation will be probably an interview. We're working on getting Jimmy Powers. It's been tough because he's not the kind of guy that usually does that thing, and it's I'm imposing a little bit because I know him since 1984. So it's been tough, and I don't want to push him. So I'm working on it slowly. It's going to come a day where we're going to call Steve and we're going to call you and we're going to say, let's do it. Jimmy's ready to go. So I assured him, we're not asking you anything that you don't want to tell us. You tell it. It's up to you. We're not the typical interview position where we're going to ask you a list of questions and you tell your story to the extent that you want to tell it. That's all we want. We want you to be comfortable.
We are looking forward to the debut of the Heart of Wrestling Radio, and I'm sure everyone would look forward to seeing you guys at the 2300 doing the podcast with Dave and Dave, and you said Lance is going to be there, and all kinds of guys, and it's a full cast of like historical wrestling figures. So if you could get out to the 2300 Arena, get to see these guys, and Monty Nefero is also going to be there, as I understand. So go and show your support for the new Heart of Wrestling Radio, and also Wrestling Rewind. So
just maybe we'll drag Angel out to the 2300 that week.
Good luck.
Go kidnap her.
Get you in the building one last time. Come on.
We'll have to drug her up.
Good luck with that, guys. So we've had fun for this arena report. So glad you got to join us, Steve Savage. And so for my co-host, the Iron Man Tommy Cairo, our co-host Steve Savage.
Yep.
I'm your host, Angel Amoroso, saying please join us every week, Sunday, 7 p.m. on Monty and Nefero's YouTube for Wrestling Rewind, arena reports, book reading, title shows, and all that, giving you the history of professional wrestling one show at a time. So join us back next week. Until then, have a nice night and a nice life.
See ya.
Bye. Okay, I'm going to keep this going so we could just get into do you guys want to do a promo for a separate promo for the arena thing and then get into
I think we're good. The fact
Tommy,
of the matter is,
real quick,
the only thing that we ended up really accomplishing is to have the T-shirts. We didn't have the time to advertise it, and I'm not worried about that. This is a slow roll, a test. We're taking it as it is. I'm not going to be like, I wanted to have this, and I'm pissed. No, it's not going to work that way. We'll slow roll, and everything will fall into place. The designs are strong.
Did you get my text about those shirts before we start recording anything again? Dino said to get the rush job done, to get them in hand by Thursday, it's a $75 rush fee from his manufacturer.
Figures. All right. When I get done, I'll go up and I'll let my wife send the money over.
Okay.
All right.
So yeah, if you
I haven't even been able to get her
Thursday.
attention. I haven't even been able to get her attention. She's got like 6 sales in the process right now. It's like
geez.
mayhem.
So do you want to get a book reading done or arena report or something that we could do roundtable-ish wise?
Yes, we're gonna do some more reading from Stampede. And real quick, Steve, last night there was about 4 pages of like you were in it when you read it. Just the craziness in the van, on the road to these remote places with a truck that barely ran with no heat, packed in the summer. It's insane. Dynamite Kid was all kinds of drugs, just crazy. You couldn't help but get caught in the whole vortex of it just by reading it. It was insane,
Okay, so do you have the book, Tommy?
Yep.
Okay, you got it all ready.
Listen, I had everything in line except that I didn't account for the small text on that one arena report. My glasses aren't strong enough. I could barely see it.
Mind.
All right.
Okay, so whenever you're ready, just let me know.
Okay.
What's the report for now? Or is this a book read?
This is a book reading of Pain and Passion. It's Stampede Wrestling, the Hearts, where all the hearts are from and everything. So we did 2 episodes of it last night, and we're just getting into different stories about how they were on a road and like Stu got fucking ass kicked by people and Davey Boy's beginnings and stuff like that. So we're just going to invite you into the 3rd episode of it.
Unlike a number of publications, Pure Dynamite, Bret Hart's book, tell parts of this story, but this is the quintessential book. This is the deal right here. All right, so the Bulldogs appeared in. We're not ready. Are we going? No, right?
No, not right now. I'm still smoking. God forbid.
I'm good.
That's the fucking Dutchie.
So
how the heck? How did this happen that I can't barely hear you now?
It's okay. It doesn't matter. Everything's plugged in. We should be fine.
All right.
Okay. All right. Close that up. Make it look different. Good evening and welcome to Wrestling Rewind. I am your host, Angel Amoroso, and I am joined by my co-host, the Iron Man, Tommy Cairo. Tommy.
Hey, what's up, girl?
And this week we have a special co-host with us, Steve Savage. Steve Savage, would you like to say hello to everyone?
Yo!
And this week we are in for another installment of Wrestling Archives book reading. And this week we are going to do a 3rd reading of the book Pain and Passion. This is a story about Stampede Wrestling, the Harts, Stu Hart, the Hart Foundation, Dynamite Kid, and everyone that came from the area at the time, and some great road stories. So, Tommy, you want to pick us up where you left off? And
Yep, that's what I'm going to do.
Pleasure.
All right, so McMahon epitomized the flesh over substance 80s. It was a decade in which Hollywood stars became president of the United States. The marketing images in a rock video became more important than the music, and blockbuster movies reigned supreme. It was a decade punctuated by unparalleled corporate greed, a time trailer made for a figure like McMahon, and he prospered, turning his father's Connecticut, New York-based territory into a global multimedia empire that brought professional wrestling to the masses in a way that Stu Hart had never dreamed possible. WWF was impossible to compete with. The old wrestling territories seemed like small potatoes next to the big-budget cartoon Flash. As their fans abandoned them, the territories toppled one after another. Despite its superb talent roster and local fan base, Stampede Wrestling had also fallen on hard times financially. Stu Hart was considering selling the business in 1984 when McMahon came along, looking to break into the Western Canadian market rather than fighting what was probably a losing battle. we covered this last night, but I'm just going to go back over it.
Yeah, so this is just a little update on we went through this, but this is like we're just updating the story so that you can get an idea of what this book is from the beginning. So go on, Tommy, please.
So despite the superb talent roster and loyal fan base, Stampede Wrestling had fallen on hard times. We said that. Rather than fighting an impossible war, he decided to go into business with Vince McMahon, which we know did not turn out too well. Calgary and Edmonton, Stu in turn would give McMahon his TV, so they were going to run house shows in Calgary and Edmonton, WWF talent. Stu in turn would give McMahon his TV spots across Western Canada. So essentially, that was the end of anything you would see on TV of Calgary. Another stipulation was that McMahon hired top talents of Stampede Wrestling, including Stu's son Bret Hart, his in-law Jim Neidhart, and Davey Boy Smith.
Which was a score for them, really.
Of course. Yeah, because, although it probably wasn't a big money territory and it was brutal, if you wanted to be a worker and be revered and taken seriously, a 6 to 8 month, 1 year stint there would do wonders for your resume.
Anyone who came from Calgary was very well respected and excelled in the business. Like, I don't think there's anyone from there that was a failure. Would you agree?
Still to this day, look at the Calgary Indies, and I think a lot of the talent up in Canada right now is still probably far superior than a good 50% of what's in the States right now.
I would have to agree.
Yeah. There's still different, and I think there's still people training people up there. I don't know, one of the Harts, somebody's doing something because I heard a couple kids were training there. When the rest of the crew arrived in the WWE, Bruce stormed. Oh, this is when they got back late from that. I thought we finished that, but here's about now Helen, right? Helen Hart, like, reluctantly went into the business, and she hated it from the very start, and she just there's nothing about it. She was very classy from New York, and she never liked it. It made her sick. His wife Helen, his pretty little Tiger Bell, certainly wasn't up to the business anymore. This type of nonsense was sapping her strength. She had never wanted to be in this lousy business to begin with, but she had been Stu's partner for 40 years. She had balanced the books, signed the checks, dealt with the irate wrestlers, social misfits, so many crazies. She charmed them all, too. She could charm anybody, but lately she was just tired. Every day she begged Stu to get out of the business. That certainly seemed like the best idea. Despite the kinks behind the scenes, Stampede Wrestling remained a quality product, and with the success of its graduates on the world stage, it was more renowned now than ever. Raw and rough, it was a treat for the pro wrestling lover, and yet it was losing its battle with the glamorous and glitz of the WWF. Every time Stampede developed a big name, that son of a bitch McMahon snatched him for his own increasingly bloated show. The Bulldogs, Bad News Allen, what a dude, Honky Tonk Man, even Stu's own sons, Brett and Owen, all of them had done stints in the WWF.
Man, he made that woman a slave. I'm sorry, but before you get too far beyond, he made that damn woman a slave. She didn't even want to be involved in this, and he insisted and insisted, you're going to do this and this, and that's exactly what she did. She was a slave. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And guess what? She was a socialite in New York. Now she's living on the prairies in Canada.
Yeah. I mean, what a friggin' culture shock. And then to be treated like that,
yeah. All these stinky wrestlers in your house,
Right.
Terrible. You got to cook for a bunch of people. They said that Stu would cook, right? And he would go to flip the sausages.
There would be cat shit all over the place.
Yeah. One would land on the floor, and he'd scoop up a cat turd too and throw it in there.
Just throw it in the pan.
And then you fast forward to the mid-90s when it was Hart versus Brett versus Lawler in that little feud, and Stu and Helen were basically cannon fodder for the commentary.
Oh yeah, and Stu by that time was like this.
Yeah, he was sitting at 80-something years old, just stone-faced the whole time.
Couldn't move. He's like a puppet at that point.
Yeah.
That's a shame. It's really a shame. A shame
All
for
right.
them. Sorry.
This
It's
is what
sorry
people find.
Yeah, it's just insane.
No, hey, listen, you know, you have a right to feel that way because I'll be honest with you, I never really gave it a lot of thought, but I do remember saying, geez, that's like what my grandfather did to my grandmother. He moved her out of an area where we all lived up to the country so he could hunt, and she was
it's
stuck
like
in that
being
house.
captive, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
Doing something that you specifically say you don't want to do and you're being forced to. She was a captive slave, that poor woman.
Yeah. And my grandmother didn't drive, so she was stuck in a house.
Yeah, that's how most women of the time were.
Yep. The WWF wasn't the paradise it was made out to be as far as Stu was concerned. It didn't necessarily make one's career. Owen, his youngest son, was already planning to leave McMahon. That kid could fly like dynamite, and he could wrestle a good meat and potatoes technical match down on the mat with the best of them. And he had lots of charisma. In many ways, he was the best wrestler of all the Hart sons. He was an instant sensation in Stampede Wrestling. But he was young, competing with the world's biggest talents in the WWF, and McMahon wasn't about to push him as a main event star until he proved himself at the bottom of the card. Fair enough. Owen would have to work his way to the top like everybody else, which is complete bullshit.
You know what? Let me just say one thing. And Steve, I'd love you.
He was 10 times the worker any of those guys were.
Right. Okay, Steve, do you think that Owen Hart was the best Hart brother?
I believe Owen was put in a position to stay where he was.
Yes.
I believe Vince never saw Owen as a world title even contender, which is why he always got stuck having to work, the Slammy Award winner, the Intercontinental belt. The only time they ever really gave him the spotlight was when he won the tags, be it with Bulldog, Brett, Pillman, or Yoko.
And he had no fire.
So your answer is no. You don't
I think he could have been had they gotten him away from the family and let him do something different. I think the highlight for Owen was when he finally got away from Brett and started doing the Blue Blazer thing.
Okay. Yeah,
everybody knew it was Owen under the hood. They made no bones about it, but I think it at least gave Owen a chance to be more, because anybody who knew Owen knew that he loved a good time as much as the next guy.
But you know what?
Writer writing this. It's all an opinion, because to say that Owen Hart is the best Hart, that this guy is really biased towards his certain favorites.
Well, a book about Stampede is going to be Hart heavy anyway.
Yeah, of course.
But like anything, they're only telling you what they want you to know. Like any shoot interview you've ever watched or been a part of, you're only knowing what the person editing wants you to know.
Great, but you know what? I know the difference between Owen Hart and Bret Hart, and I know that Bret Hart's a better wrestler, and I'll say it.
Yeah, okay. I believe that, and I don't know. What I don't get is those 90% of the roster in the WWF at that time would get their clocks cleaned and would get blown up if they had to work the style that they were working in Calgary. Mm-hmm. These guys were insane, and you had tons of them. You had Ben Basharab, you had Beef Wellington, you had the guy Johnny Smith, who was supposed to be one of the Smiths, but he wasn't, but he, stocky guy. They had guys that were run circles around the WWF guys at the time.
And do you know why? Because these are the guys who they were not only trained and then they went home to their families or whatever. They actually lived the life. They traveled constantly, and they were constantly just around each other in their little circle, and they lived, they slept, they ate, they breathed wrestling. Whereas a lot of people don't do as much, but Stu, being the leader and having all the Hearts, the way he raised them to be was the way he pretty much raised all the people around him and all of his to be, and that's what gave all of them such a strong work ethic, and that's why some of the best wrestlers came from that camp there in Calgary.
Yeah.
Well, harking back to what was that documentary from back in the day, Beyond the Mat? He had how many kids, and all the boys became wrestlers, and all the girls married wrestlers.
Married wrestlers, yeah.
Yes, but
imagine that poor woman.
Oh my God, Helen must have been going out of her damn mind.
This is what I'm saying. This poor woman, she was enslaved to even be a breeder for wrestlers, and then
just got worse and worse.
The family then grew, and you have like generations after generations of Harts and Neidharts and married and intertwined, like in-laws and cousins, just all over the place, and still, doing their thing.
But the family at the time, when everybody was with us, that family was a who's who of the wrestling business.
Absolutely.
Look at Natty. I just was surprised. I saw her. I don't know what I was watching, but she came on, and I was like, wow, she looks fantastic.
Incredible.
The best I ever saw her. And the fact that she's not crippled, oh, God bless her, because if you're crippled, you can notice it. You can't hide it.
Mm-hmm.
And she looks great.
She must take fantastic care of herself, and it's good because someone, male or female, needs to carry on the name of the Hart family.
And carry it on with dignity.
Yes.
And no shame, and not getting caught up in crap, not hearing anything about her that's really outrageous, and not disappointing her fans and letting these young kids down with yet another fallen, hero that got caught up in whatever crap. Yeah. So you got to give her credit. If you can stay around the business that long, hey, look, the best, the cleanest, the squeaky clean Elizabeth couldn't escape the business. It took her life in a heartbeat. Over the course of a few years, she went from a girl that didn't know anything about anything to knowing it all and doing it all. And that's powerful, man.
Yes.
So for Natty to still be in the business and to not have anything major, any issues, and still being healthy and still be making money, and then maybe move into the behind the scenes and groom, it's great,
Sometimes people look at other people and they see that they're doing it all, but sometimes doing it all is too much.
Even Elizabeth stuck around long after she had no reason to be around anymore.
Yeah.
What was the real reason Miss Elizabeth became part of the NWA?
Well, it was for the same reason why she entered wrestling and became a part of wrestling. And I think we know of the history of her, and a lot of other ladies started how they did, and that's why they're there and stayed that way throughout the history of the business. They were just respected a little bit more because they were working and just doing the same thing they did before time. We know what we're saying, but
I'm quite sure if you were
respect for Miss Elizabeth and Nancy Benoit and all those ladies, but we all know what positions everyone held before their time.
It's sad,
Very sad.
But we can't dwell on it. We're still here by the grace of God, so we got to make the best of it.
Chew you up and vomit you out. But back to our book here, because interesting
stuff.
So,
the whole deal went down. We talked about it last night. Vince McMahon reneged on his deal. He stopped promoting. Stu went back to running, his promotion, which eventually just, dissipated. Nobody could handle running it properly, and it just, at that point, everybody was gone that could have helped them. They were all in the WWF. It says Brett, who had been a tag team champion with that wild son-in-law Jim Neidhart, wrestling as the Hart Foundation, was getting a huge push in the WWF as a single star. Owen, he had a bright future ahead of him, too, whether he wanted to wrestle or not. His wedding was only days away to headstrong Martha Patterson, who he had been dating since high school. But the fiasco in the Northwest Territories had managed to poison even that. Dynamite Kid, considered one of the family, had been invited to Owen's wedding until his attack on Bruce Hart, who was to be Owen's best man, said he wouldn't appear at the wedding if Dynamite attended. How do you break such news to a time bomb like Dynamite Kid, especially when you need him to work the next series of matches? Yet another wrestling-related headache. But there would be no more. Stu Hart started making plans to pull the plug on Stampede Wrestling, and this time he damn well would. So, hopefully, I don't know how much longer they lived after that. Not too long. But now this is where it really gets serious. Okay, here's a guy who probably didn't have enough food to even keep him alive, and look at him. You know, there was no steroids back then. Drank milk, ate eggs, ate beef.
He looks about 150 pounds.
Yeah, I would say so. So this chapter 2 is called Superman of the Prairies. So they gave you up to that point, and now they're skipping back to when Stu started out. The Stampede Wrestling story begins, and many believe it should end, with Stuart Edwin Hart, Stu. His story is the stuff of legends, cut from the rugged red-blooded mythology of the Wild West. To find what it means to be tough in the two-fisted traditions of John Wayne or a 1940s comic book hero. And in Stu Hart, you have the realization of that all but extinct ideal. A rock-hard, square-jawed man up to any physical challenge. A tireless worker, a pillar of strict moral fiber. Even though he made his name in a normally ambiguous world, a virile stud bull who fathered 12 children, many of them chiseled physical specimens in their own right, a man who was never seen to shed a tear, no matter the crushing crisis, because men don't cry. Stu Hart was forged in steel, a Superman of the prairies, but he was an antiquated macho brute. Here, too, was a man who cooked for his children, mended their clothes, cared for them when they were ill, and got them off to school and every day. Stu Hart was a gentleman who unashamedly fostered his maternal instincts while his wife handled the business end of the family business, taking care of the finances, the advertising, and the bookkeeping. Not so strange now, perhaps, but very much so in those days.
So, wait, hold up. So she took care of all the business end while he took all the children that she bred for him and turned them all into wrestlers. Like he literally took on the role of nurturing, like he was the mother.
Thanks for the roster. Here's the checkbook.
Yeah, feeding them and training them and just making sure that all of the 12 children were taken care of. Like he was the mother, and she went ahead and took care of all of the business and ran it quite successfully, even though as a slave she did not want to.
Yeah, and like again, not only that, she had to do the work too. So
you try to push 12 kids out and then run a wrestling promotion.
Oh
I don't want to push any kids out and run shit.
Yeah. Now, check it out. He was doing double duty. Why was he available during the day? Because he worked nights. You work nights when you're in the wrestling business.
Yeah, unbelievable active guy in every community. But I think we got some fun stories out of this one so far, Tommy. And I think we could pick up where we left off some other time in continuing with Pain and Pleasure. Is it called?
It's Pain and Passion.
Pain and
the history of Stampede Wrestling. This is the revised and expanded edition. I waited for 2 years to get this.
Yes, so we have to pick up where we left off and grab some more interesting stories about the Hart family and Calgary, Stampede, all that fun stuff.
And you know what? You want to see how talented and the style these guys were working, a style of their own, hybrid from people having influence on the promotion from coming all over the world, including Dynamite Kid. And, you know, if you just go on YouTube and type in Calgary Stampede Wrestling, unless some more recent stuff comes up, it should go right back to the original promotion. And watch a card or two. It's amazing. It's amazing.
So,
style,
Steve,
incredible.
Do you like being brought back like this in time?
I love it.
I'm happy to be called in for anything. I'm sitting here folding laundry, so this gave me a nice little break from that.
You know, I told my wife.
You're entertained.
I just got back from a weekend with the midgets, so good luck topping that, though.
Yeah. Transvestites. Yeah, my wife and I were talking last night, and she said you seem really excited. I said, you know what? It's like living more wrestling because we're already on that wavelength. So when you're reading something, it's a lot different than somebody wasn't in the business because you're in the car, you're riding right along.
Experienced this before, and
Yeah.
you feel it because it's so relevant to what all of us go through. I think
all the answers to today are in the past.
I know Tommy hates this, but you mentioned WCCW earlier and reading the Hart book. If it were legit,
is what?
If it were legit, 100% shoot, Fritz von Erich versus Stu Hart.
Oh, Stu Hart. In seconds.
Yeah.
In seconds. It would crush him.
As much as I love and respect the Von Erich family, he's taken that L.
No, that man was not human. He was not human. Didn't feel pain, didn't register it if he did feel it, never cried. He could grab your wrist and probably crush your freaking bones.
Yeah, probably.
No emotion. You would think he was some kind of psychotic narcissist, but you hear the way he took care of his children, then you start to think like if that were his personality, he wouldn't behave like that with it. But he was raising an army, so
and guess what?
That way,
they were all there.
Right.
They're all there around the table. There must be a reason why they're all there. Something's got to be working.
I think we all love to have our own little army, especially if they're our own blood. And that could run a wrestling promotion and really excel and make the family name proud. And we would all want that to happen when we're running a wrestling promotion, especially when we're going out of our way to enslave our wife and make push to 12 babies out to make the promotion and run things.
12 babies? What? You got to be pregnant every other freaking.
Right.
But where do you find time to book during that? That just seems like a lot. 12. That's more work than it's worth on all ends.
Listen, that's a woman with that's a strong uterus right there. I'll tell you.
She was little skinny girl.
Hey, she popped them out though, right? She popped out winners. Doesn't matter how small she was. So thank you so much for joining this episode of Wrestling Rewind's book reading of Pain and Passion, the Stampede Calgary story, all about the Harts and all that. And
I'm a little tired from that trip.
It was quite the trip back in time. And we thank our co-host, Steve Savage, for joining us for this book reading. I think you probably learned a few things and enjoyed it as well.
I always find the book reads interesting, regardless of who's actually reading them, because it's the content that you read some of these guys' books. I'm not going to say a whole litany of names. Everybody knows who's written books and who hasn't. Some guys, you can tell when they write, are just out for themselves. Some guys believe in themselves a little bit too much. The books, I think, are the one place that still make you question what's real and what isn't.
Well,
because of the characters.
With legalities, books usually have fact checkers, so you could believe them a little bit more than just some people's word of mouth. So books are always good.
Well, the wrestling business and wrestlers is the most fascinating thing that exists. They're the most colorful, fascinating, unbelievable specimens that could do everything wrong and still be successful. It's amazing. They're inhuman. We're all inhuman. There's not one of us that spent more than a little time in the business that is not exceptional in more than one way. And most of us wind up learning how to do it right by consistently doing it wrong or going against the grain. And I look at it like this. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. I don't change with the wind. I stick with my convictions, and sooner or later, I'm back in style. And when I'm not, I don't care. So
we're a rare breed. Very much so. And that's why we're all here. You know, we all have a common love. So, and this is why people tune in, because they all have that common love with us. So join us every week here on Wrestling Rewind at 7 p.m. on Sundays, hosted by Monty and the Pharaoh on YouTube. And for my co-host, and my co-host, the Iron Man Tommy Caro and Steve Savage, Angel Amoroso is saying, have a nice night and a nice life. Good night.
See ya.